China is currently experiencing an AI boom, but what does this $84 billion industry mean for Chinese citizens and the global South? And how is the Chinese government addressing concerns about the effects of AI on climate change, on wealth inequality, and the digital divide? We'll discuss this and more on this week's China Report. Welcome to the China Report. Every week, we'll be helping you sort through all the propaganda with an independent view of the country that we're taught to hate, but know so little about. I'm your host, Amanda Yee. These are this week's headlines. China has issued a travel warning for Japan. This follows Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's remarks in Parliament on November 7th, in which she stated a Chinese invasion of Taiwan could amount to a, quote, survival-threatening situation, unquote, potentially requiring Japan to activate its own self-defense forces. Takaichi's statements drew strong rebukes from Chinese officials who summoned the Japanese ambassador to Beijing and demanded that she retract her remarks. In response, Chinese Vice Foreign Minister Sun Weidong warned that, quote, anyone who dares to interfere in China's reunification cause in any form will surely be dealt a heavy blow, unquote. Sharp criticism came from within Japan as well, particularly from main opposition parties, with the Japanese Communist Party chair Tamura Tomoko not only demanding that the prime minister retract her remarks, but also that the JCP has communicated to Beijing its opposition to any military intervention in Taiwan by Japan and the United States, and that they are committed to improving Japan-China relations and making every effort to prevent any conflict from escalating into war. Despite the diplomatic row, Takaichi has refused to walk back her statement, and the Chinese embassy issued the travel warning Friday on WeChat, noting that, quote, recently, Japanese leaders have made blatantly provocative remarks regarding Taiwan, severely damaging the atmosphere for people-to-people exchanges, unquote, and that the situation presents significant risks to the personal safety and lives of Chinese citizens in Japan. Following the announcement, 3 Chinese airlines, Air China, China Southern, and China Eastern, offered full refunds until the end of the year. The U.S. just announced a $330 million arms package to Taiwan on Friday. The sale covers mostly Lockheed Martin fighter jets and other spare aircraft parts operated by Taiwan's Air Force, and is the first such transaction since President Trump took office in January. Taiwan's presidential office thanked the U.S. government for its support and continuing the policy of regularized arms sales. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian sharply criticized the sale, telling reporters at a press conference in Beijing, quote, the Taiwan question is the core of China's core interests and the first red line that must not be crossed in China-U.S. relations, unquote. China is cracking down on AI images and video. This move is a response to an uptick in fake content posted on social media. Beijing revised a current law in internet safety to now include risk management and safety monitoring of AI. The revisions were approved by the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress on October 28th and will take effect in January. In addition, the Cyberspace Administration of China announced on Friday that they were cracking down on the use of AI-generated deepfakes to impersonate public figures in live streaming, e-commerce to promote products and mislead consumers. The regulator said online platforms have been urged to launch a cleanup, which has so far removed over 8,700 pieces of non-compliant content and dealt with more than 11,000 accounts that impersonated others. Chinese scientists have managed to extract rare earth minerals from a living plant. Researchers believe that this could be the first step toward environmentally friendly metal extraction. The scientists collected samples of hyperaccumulator plants, a species known for storing unusually high levels of metals, along with its surrounding soil, and their study revealed nanoscale monazite, a phosphate mineral typically formed under high heat and pressure inside the plants. Monazite is a rare earth mineral which can be used in applications including coatings, lasers, ionic conductors, and radioactive waste management. The team said that these plants were capable of concentrating heavy metals and metalloids at levels hundreds to thousands of times higher than the surrounding soil. Researchers concluded that this may support the potential of phytomining, a process that uses plants to extract valuable metals from soil. The study was conducted by researchers from the Guangzhou Institute of Geochemistry in China and Virginia Tech in the United States and published in the journal Environmental Science and Technology. Well, it's no secret that China is embarking on an AI revolution. But how is AI being harnessed to upgrade traditional sectors in the country? And how do they plan to bridge the digital divide so that global South countries are not left behind? To discuss this, we are honored to have on this week Professor Shen Yee. Professor Shen is Assistant Dean of the School of International Relations and Public Affairs at Fudan University in Shanghai. He's also Professor of International Politics and Director of Fudan University's Research Center for International Governance of Cyberspace. Professor Shen, welcome to the China Report.
Nice to meet you. Hi, everyone.
Well, it's really an honor to have you on. For us in the States, if you follow China at all, you've probably seen this video going viral the last few days. It shows hundreds of UB Tech humanoid robots being shipped to industrial facilities across China. And the company has said that this is the first large-scale delivery of humanoids built to move and work like humans. So there are currently just over 2 million industrial robots in operation in China. And the applications of AI go far beyond manufacturing, as seen in this video. One of the more interesting uses of AI that I've read about that China is applying is that with its rapidly aging population, they're building robots to provide elderly care. So I was wondering, could you talk a little bit about how AI is being leveraged to upgrade traditional sectors like elderly care, healthcare, agriculture, and what are the more interesting applications of AI that you've seen in China?
I think that one of the most important characteristics of this application of AI is we focusing on those specified application of AI in different scenarios, especially in those industry scenarios or in those service scenarios. When we introduce AI, we are not only focusing on a single AI models or try to use one model to solve everything to produce so-called generated strong AIs. But we're talking about that how to use this AI, empower the people, assist the people to finish their jobs. Or we sometimes want to use this AI to liberate people from those very traditional those traditional jobs, which not need a human's initiatives, but just to duplicate every single step in everyday's working jobs. We use AI in this very programmed standardization process so that this AI can providing us new labors. And then we liberate peoples from this little bit weird workers and make people have their time to invest and make them jobs to use their brains and the initiatives in a more creative ways. So that's one of the most important difference characteristic comparing the AI application in China and in the United States.
Yeah. In the States, the AI discussion is one that's often steeped in dread because we associate AI with loss of jobs. And we associate it as a way for companies to make more profit just by cutting down on their human labor. So in China, is there a similar kind of discussion, or are there similar anxieties about how AI will impact society, and how is that mitigated?
If you go back to human history, every kind of innovation of the technologies in human history, it always means that we will live up to the so-called efficiency of production. The level up of efficiency means we will need few people to doing the same jobs in the same times. So in the long time, it's not new challenges produced by AI innovations. Frankly speaking, it's created by any kind of technology innovations in human history. But there's a very important but. It depends on what kind of government's preference or the priority of the policies to solve these issues. If you go back to the open up reform policies in the 1980s, you will find there's a huge waves of those people who lost their job during this enterprise reform process. at the cost of this open up and reform process, we know that we cannot refuse such kind of reform only because it will level up efficiencies and leading to new problems on how to create more proper jobs for those peoples. But it's government's duties. So these things has been separated into two parts very clearly. First, we encourage the development of AI innovations and encourage use such kind of innovations in the technical aspect to empower people's production efficiencies and help us to produce more efficiency. Second, we are highly sensitive that such kind of technical innovations would leading to those labor problems. The government has their duty to set up a proper policy preference. This policy preference based on that those profits created by the AI innovation and its implication in the industry will be distributed in a more equal ways, so that the governments have the capacities to empower people and help those peoples who lost their jobs from the application of these AI technologies to be properly trained and got new jobs after they have been empowered by new technologies or the knowledges or any other necessary policy, assistance. Actually, if you go back to United States, since the early of the 1990s, when Bill Clinton took the White House, they already believe that United States need to create those new job training programs for those peoples suffering from these ICT innovations during this process, because lots of traditional labor forces lost their jobs after the enterprise launched the application of these new ICT technologies or industry tools. But the most important difference or the most important point is to which extent the government has the capacities to solve these problems by not only producing policies, but also have the capacities to deliver that policy into a very deliverable programs that are leading to the proper result. I think according to China's experience, yes, the application of this AI will leading to some labor problems, but we can solve it in at least three ways. The first, we encourage the application of these AI technologies in a proper ways, so it make it possible to reduce any negative damage to the job problems as less as possible. For example, we are not encouraged to development those so-called unmanned vehicle technologies on taxi drivers, because taxi drivers is very important for those labor. It's just like a labor pools. If you deliver these unmanned vehicles on taxis, it will leading some challenges to those drivers. But we encourage those unmanned vehicles to those dangerous drivers, which means they drive the long cars or the cargoes in those very complex chemical environment, for example. And then it means such kind of unmanned vehicle technologies will help people to make people working in a more safer ways, rather than compete or expel the drivers out from those taxi drivers. That's one point. And the second point, in every level of government, from the local level to the central level government, labor employment rate is one of the first priorities of any policy deliver and the policy making process. The government taking that numbers on the first priorities and deliver every possible solutions to ensure that less people will have been those negatively affected during we apply those new AI technologies. And the third, the companies are encouraged by the government and by societies to launch necessary ESG systems in which that will take care that those labor forces will be less damage affected by the development of these new AI technologies. So I think based on these three levels or three pillar sponsored systems, make it possible in China. Yes, we already face some troubles and challenges by delivering these AI technologies and AI applications in lots of job scenarios. But on the other side, we already delivering a more softened systems and very flexible and can launch a very smart reactions to any potential damage raised by these AI innovations. And last, of course, not the least, it's kind of cognition point. In China, people tend to take a quite optimistic attitude toward these technical innovations. Generally speaking, we believe the development of these technologies, which can empower people to produce things with higher efficiency, is by nature a good development of all human beings. While at the same time, we admit any kind of such innovations definitely would be a so-called double-sided sword, the double-edged sword, which means definitely it will bring some challenges, those negative challenges. But such kind of negative effects is the jobs we need to solve only by continue our development rather than just refuse or saying no in a more generally ways to those technical innovations.
Mm. Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of government intervention in China to mitigate some of these more damaging effects of AI in a way that there just isn't in the States. I think in the States, we also have this concern about like left to the whims of the market, as it often is in the States, AI will exacerbate inequality and give greater power to larger corporations. That's another concern we have here surrounding AI. There's been a very rapid development of this kind of technology. Are there any kinds of regulatory mechanisms in place in China for the way that this technology will be applied? And how will China ensure that this technology will be accessible to everyone and not just the wealthy?
And that's very interesting questions. I think on those technical or those tactical levels, since the year about I think maybe 2017 or 2018, from that time, the Chinese central government began to launch systematically policy and the legal producing process in which to ensure that those ICT innovations represented by AI in these latest years could be and should be development in a proper ways under our legal administrations, and to ensure that such kind of AI will not become monopolized by those minority wealthy peoples and can be accessible to as much as people as possible. I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, the top leaders, President Xi Jinping, host a standing committee of CCCP and launch a joint learning on these AI issues. Then it make a very important statement after these activities and say that this AI in the domestic levels should be benefit to populations to benefit, make a contribution, more benefits to normal peoples. And in the world, this AI should become one of the most important public goods, which can benefit all human beings in a more general ways. And in China, I have to say maybe that's because our systems, China is a socialist country and under the lead of Chinese Communist Party, in which from the beginning, by nature, in China's political, economic, societal logic, any kind of technical innovation, including AI, their first priority is to make benefit to most majority of those normal peoples. It's not allowed, or you can say it's not political correct in China say that minority peoples can monopoly the advantages produced by those technical innovations and those minority huge platforms or enterprise can empowered by these technical innovations and only based their own very minor interest. This is not, you can say, allowed, or such kind of thing will never be happened. Or even sometimes there's such kind of trends that we will develop on that trend, and then you will find that there was a correction systems that will help people to correction their behaviors, correction their policies, and correction their actions, and make it back to those proper directions. And also, in the development of this AI, because of Chinese traditional cultures and our development model or the patterns of the AI, it's a very practical lead or practical centered development of AI technologies. From the very beginning, we believe that any kind of the development of technologies like AI, the first priority is it must providing us a very concrete benefits, in which it means it should be access to normal peoples, and it should not making new bridges or digital divide only based on their wealthy all those things, and especially those poor, those relatively weak minor groups should be encouraged and be ensured that they can got full access to those leading technical innovations in a more general ways. So I think we have a systematically insurance systems to ensure that any kind of technical innovations like AI can doing benefit to as much as people as possible.
Yeah, I've noticed that the discussion around AI in China is much more hopeful than it is here. I noticed the framing around AI is one that will transform society, that will transform human civilization, and that it's a tool for the benefit that can bring greater well-being to other people around the world. And this is something that I've noticed a lot, that China always sees these kinds of advancements. They should be used as a way to benefit all of mankind. And sometimes when you look at this kind of technological development, there is concern, especially among some of the global South countries, that they will be left behind. Do you know if China has any policies in place on how they plan to close this digital divide between, among the global South countries? And how are they making sure that they're not left behind in this AI development?
For example, a company like Huawei, they already investment a lot on those global South countries where they're doing their business. In Brazil, Huawei launched an AI online colleges, which is open, free to all those local young generation peoples. And the people can get the knowledges, got trained during that online colleges. And Huawei also providing technical and capital sponsor to those local small and middle enterprise to investment or to development in this AI industry. That's one of the examples that Chinese enterprise who enjoy the advantage or leading technologies on this AI aspect are willing to providing capacity assistance or training programs for their global South partners and to ensure that the global South countries will not be left behind. That's one hand. On the other side, I think that in the framework or the platforms like One Belt, One Road and Global South Cooperation framework, or the BRICS countries and the BRICS Plus partners programs, those multilateral platforms China participated in, and China always is very actively to provide, just like President Xi Jinping say that AI is nothing but a kind of public goods or global commons to the global South countries, especially the global South countries need and should have the right to get access on it. As I know that Chinese government are thinking that whether in one day we can have a kind of problems, we can providing these AI infrastructures to global South countries, like providing them public commons or public goods, just like those programs we do in the One Belt One Road initiatives. It's like we helping to providing you infrastructures, we providing the capacities to building these infrastructures. In these AI things, it's like that. You can say that one day China is willing to providing them a set solution, which means we're helping you to build a road, build the telecommunication systems so that you have a broader network. And then we're helping you to setting up your computing centers, including providing you a supply chain secured computing chips, and we're providing you this open source LLM. And then those global south countries can got their digital infrastructures of AI innovations. And then they can build their own data centers and collection their data, raw data resources, and running their own vertical applications based on the China provided AI digital infrastructure basement, which means there's a huge computing centers, and China are willing to providing them, finding a proper way how to doing these things, and so that the global south countries can feel free to access their own LLM and their own territorials, which means can ensure their cyber sovereignties, and also they can keep the secure of their raw data and let these raw data running and be trained or mining on these digital infrastructures and development their own vertical AI-based applications in different scenarios. I think that's be a proper models, because it's a mission impossible for those every single global south countries to train their own separate LLM, or those have their own separate so-called sovereignty AI centers. But they need those countries like China who are willing to paying the cost to providing those public goods based on the guiding of the 2035, 2030 global SDG, UN SDG plan, something like that. And we providing them those infrastructures and helping people to get to bridge over those digital guide or digital divide, so that they can collect their own data resources and mining and training their own models based on those computing centers or AI centers provided by Chinese companies or provided by the Chinese government. And I think Chinese governments already launched this global AI governance initiative, something like that, in which that we encourage calling for people's based on the common willingness to providing such kind of assistance to global south countries in a more general ways. I think China is not only providing technologies, productions, but also try to create a kind of orders or new trends in those global governance systems in which that providing AI centers, those AI needed digital infrastructures to global south countries should be one of the most important priorities when we're doing those business or launching those policies and so on.
Absolutely. Another major part of the AI discussion is the effects that it will have on climate change. AI is obviously very energy intensive, uses up a lot of resources. So how is China responding to some of the impacts that AI has on the environment? From what I understand, a way that they're doing that is leveraging AI to advance green technology and innovation. So if you could talk about that as well, that would be great.
Actually, you raised a very important questions. We can identify two different development patterns or methods. Patterns of the developing AIs in a very general ways. According to the UN General Secretary, Mr. Guterres, he mentioned this on the Paris Summit on AI. I think just this year or the last year, he said that those resources intensified mass patents to develop AIs already reach its limitations. These resources intensified models to develop the AI represent one of the most most characteristic representatives is ChatGPT. And OpenAI launched this ChatGPT. You'll find it need huge amounts of very expensive NVIDIA computer cards and joined together become a huge super computing centers, and it need a huge amounts of energy resources. It needs independent nuclear power stations and comprehend totally all the nuclear power plant station. The only job is to sponsor to power those computing centers. These models means power resources intensified models to development AI. But on the other side, to China's side, just like DeepSeek, and it's very ironic. One of the most important reason that China tried to ensure resources-friendly patterns to develop the AI as we face the sanction from United States. So we cannot got enough expensive card to build these huge computing centers. And so Chinese people find it's important to find out that the main jobs we want to develop this AI is to use AI to deliver those solutions in very detailed scenarios. So first, we try to deliver a more large models that with less but more precise parameters, so that the model is not that big and it can be more easily to be trained with a relatively low cost. And the second, because we need this model is relatively small, so that we need less computing card, relatively energy-friendly computing centers, we can afford it. And the third, from China's side, we enjoy our advantages or our advanced experience to development those green energies, which means even though we need these powers, we have the capacity to deliver the power in a very green, cheap, and resources-friendly ways. And the last, of course, not the least, China take a very open sources attitude on everything of the development of the AI. It means we are very actively sharing our knowledges, experience, capacities, technologies, and the productions that can help other peoples to duplicate or learning from China's experience and finding out their own ways to deliver AI in a resources-friendly ways. So we are not only contribution to China, to the world, that China its own models to develop the AI with relatively low cost, environment cost. And also we are trying to contributing to the world that encourage and enable the global South countries to develop their own AI capacities in a resources-friendly ways. I think that's one of the most important contribution that China making to the world.
Absolutely. And I think it's no question that China has become such an AI powerhouse because the government identified technological innovation as a key driver of economic development a long time ago, and they created a national strategy around it. You talked a little bit about this earlier, but can you talk a bit more about how the Communist Party of China has prioritized and developed this sector? Whether it be central planning, key investments, things like that. And how do you see AI developing over the next 5 years with the implementation of the new 15th five-year plan?
In the new 15 5-year plan, AI and the development of this AI-empowered digital economy is one of the most important part of the plan because we believe that the main driving force in the next 5 or 10 years definitely belong to those AI-empowered AI-empowered industries, which will make extremely important contribution to the continuity of the growth of our economy. And to the CCP, you know that according to the CCP philosophy and the logic, they put the industry capacities at the first priority. And I believe the party got their legitimacy mainly from that to which extent they can create and liberate the force of production, which means to which extent these countries under the governance of CCP can first leading to the economic growth, and second, distribute the economic growth, those production, those values with more equal ways, make as much as possible peoples to improving their lives. And the third, according to CCP's logic, especially to China experience, that we believe science and technologies are the first power of the productions, which means if you really want to develop your own economies, you need to develop your science and the technologies and focusing on the leading edge technologies. Especially you need to pay special attentions on the importance and the innovation and so on. So the continuity of such kind of logic in the last 17 years, we already finished 15 5-year plan, and we just continue to have our 15 and 16 5-year plan. And one of the most important experiences, we try to continue move on the same directions, especially when we prove that direction is correct. It means we try to try our best to avoiding those hit how to say the 折返跑, the hit the running back on the same directions, just duplicate the same thing once more again, but we can, in which if you're comparing what China did on this policy, the continuity, and what the United States did on the same aspect, you will find that the continuity of the policy maybe is the most important. And in future, I think in this coming 15 5-year plan, and China's side, we will encourage the AI to be applied in nearly every aspect of our economy and the industry aspect. And we try to use this AI to empower people and providing assistance to the people so that we can make people to have a better life, have people more capacities to learning more knowledges with AI assistance, and have enjoyed these high quality lives, especially for those elderly groups in which we extremely shorting off these human assistants caring a nursing service to those peoples. So we want to this human AI and the AI empowered robot can helping us to solve these problems in the coming 3 or 5 years. But we don't have the very concrete answer whether this is the best answers or whether this is the only solutions. But those 15 5-year plan, those experience tell us don't worry about those uncertainties. If we just keep the the strategic goals to put it in the proper directions, and we can make those very flexible step-by-step testament in which that more easy for us to correct any potential risk or to make correction to any potential misdirections, and then continue our development in a more stable ways.
All right, Professor Shen, that was really enlightening. Thank you so much for your time. Maybe to end, if people in the U.S. are interested in checking out more of your work, is there a place that they can find you?
they can, but frankly speaking, there's not much of English works on doing those Chinese jobs. But if you go to YouTube, you will find that 一语道破 or 审议观察, just like you use my name 审议, of course in Chinese. I highly recommend you to read some Chinese, and that will be for your better understanding. Because after you got the capacity to read and understand Chinese, you can directly understand those Chinese written materials, which providing you a different understanding and the background of these knowledges. And generally speaking, every week I will have 2 or 3 times to have an online live interview or interaction podcast programs with other peoples, and my research mainly focusing on the Sino-US relationships and cyberspace governance and cybersecurity, cross-strait issues, national security, and so on. So if you have interesting to understand, to got more information from Chinese aspect, how to understand today's world, you are welcome to my video channels and find me on those YouTube platforms.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Shen.
Pleasure.
Well, in the remote mountainous areas of Zhejiang province, elderly residents have the option of having warm meals delivered from their local canteen. The canteens are government-subsidized dining halls offering discount meals to the elderly in these rural areas. In some parts of the province, the Chinese government has also launched a drone delivery service earlier this year to deliver these meals, and some villagers have said that delivery time has been slashed from 30 minutes by car to just 4 minutes by drone. The drone service is expected to expand to include delivery of medicine and parcels in the future. That's our show. If you liked it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.